Governor Scott Walker with a real-time fact check against everybody's favorite CNN host, Abby Phillip. I mean, is he auditioning to replace Scott Jennings? That would be amazing, right? We're going to show you every little detail of that and expose exactly where Abby Phillip got her fake news that she got fact-checked on. We're going to give you that, and you're going to love it. Also, a great moment where the Secretary of Education commandeered the podium, a la Andrew Breitbart and Anthony Weiner. It was a great moment yesterday, and you're going to see it. Jasmine Crockett admits that she was a DEI hire, and that didn't end well for her. And Chris Coons, Martha McCallum, an interview on Fox News that will leave you absolutely on the floor laughing at how pathetic these Democrats are. All that and a whole lot more. We're as entertaining as a high school version of Sound of Music, and we're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. I played Captain Von Trapp, by the way. I was brilliant. I was 15. Tariff wars, recession fears, stubborn inflation in this environment. Gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs in volatile markets like right now. I mean, take a look. Things are reacting from the tariff announcement yesterday, right? Are you feeling a little unnerved? Well, don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. Take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Is it time for you to find out if you can hedge against inflation and economic instability with gold? I think it is. So to learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text my name, Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free no-obligation info kit. That's my name, Larry, to the number 989898. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They got countless 5-star reviews. I count on Birch Gold, and so can you. It took us decades to get into this tangled economic mess. How long do you think it's going to take to get out? Why don't you act now? Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Go ahead and do that today. Now, you know, we like talking about Abby Phillip only because Scott Jennings is on her show. We made the point yesterday that the only reason people watch is for Scott Jennings, but now enter another Scott, Scott Walker. Scott Walker is the president of Young America's Foundation, but of course you know him as the former governor of the state of Wisconsin. He was campaigning all over Wisconsin for this last Tuesday's special election, and for some post-election analysis, he joined Abby Phillip right there on CNN. And then Ms. Phillip made the really, really bad mistake of telling a lie about that campaign to a man who was all over the state, campaigning every single day, tirelessly. And what happened next is absolute brilliance.
Elon Musk for a second, because I mean, it is true that he spent $20 million on affiliated groups that were involved in this race. Was it a risk for Republicans to put all their eggs in that basket? Not only did he spend the money, he came to the state. Right. He came to the state. He talked about cutting Medicaid, Social Security through DOGE. Bringing those issues up.
Actually, he never talked. He explicitly said in Green Bay that he would not cut Social Security.
Well,
that's exactly what he said.
Talked at his rallies.
No, other people said about that, but I was there. I watched him. Okay. He did not say he was going to cut Medicaid.
Other people at his rallies who work for DOGE, who work for Elon Musk's organization, talked about those issues.
No, I was at the rally. Not a one of them said that. That's what protesters said, but nobody there actually said that.
Do you think that there are risks here?
There are. People believe the lies that people are saying about that. But that's not at all what they said. If people believe that Medicaid and Medicare is going to be touched, that's just a flat, outright lie. What he talked about are people who are over 120 years old, who clearly are not alive.
Well, the reason I brought it up is
Social Security or Medicaid.
Okay, well,
that's totally wrong. I think
just to sort this out, the reason I brought this up is because the claim here is that there's massive, widespread fraud, and that's all they're addressing. That's obviously a disputed claim because it's not true that 120-year-old people are getting Social Security checks. The checks stop at a certain point automatically because those checks and balances
but those Social Security numbers get counted for various parts of the federal government. So they count, they don't get a benefit directly to those people, but they count for money that gets allocated to different departments in their budget. And they shouldn't be. If somebody's no longer alive, they shouldn't be able to count that.
I guess my fundamental question was, what are the risks here of Elon dabbling in elections for Republicans going forward?
Well, again, I think in the end, he's going to have to continue to make the case. Part of the reason why when we talked about our recall, what flipped things for us early on in that recall process, Time Magazine called me Dead Man Walker. And the reason was because all the narratives coming out from the press, coming out from the left, were about all these horrible, egregious things. Once we started to give examples of things we were actually doing, not the things the press said, not the things that So's our opponent said, but the things that we were actually doing, when we ended up going before the voters in the final election and the recall, we actually won by more votes than we did. So I think that what's paramount for him or anyone else aligned with him is keep giving actual examples of what they're doing. Set aside things like Social Security and make it abundantly clear that that's not being touched. But if there's waste, fraud, or abuse, spell it out, make the case, and bring it to the voters.
Now, we love Governor Scott Walker over here, have loved him ever since the left hated him back in 2010 in Madison, Wisconsin. Remember the whole Occupy the Capitol thing? Remember the whole insurrection problem on January 6th? Trust me, the left did that to the State House in Wisconsin for a month when Governor Walker was in the State House. But boy, you don't hear the media talking about that very much. In fact, MSNBC actually broadcast all of their primetime shows from the lawn outside the Capitol building while the occupiers had taken over the interior of that Capitol in Madison. Go ahead and look in your history books. That's what happened. We love Scott Walker and always have ever since that time, and continue to as he leads Young America's Foundation, a great organization that we've got a nice relationship with. But I want to tell you, I'm really happy that we were able to enjoy, appreciate, and put a spotlight on Governor Scott Walker's final appearance on CNN, because they are never going to have him back after that. This is amazing what he was able to do with a smile on his face, by the way, which, again, I love the happy warriors of my generation who are able to tell the truth, get a little energetic about it, push back as much as we possibly can, and still maintain a happy attitude about it. Watch this with me, shall we? Because it needs to be broken
back to Elon Musk for a second, because, I mean, it is true that he spent $20 million on affiliated groups that were involved in this race.
She doesn't mention the more than $20 million that was spent by J.B. Pritzker and George Soros and affiliated groups and other outside. In fact, did you know that 77% of the money that went to Ms. Crawford, the liberal who was running in the Supreme Court seat here in the state of Wisconsin, 77% of her money came from outside of the state of Wisconsin? I mean, while you're bringing up the Elon Musk money, which is a legitimate issue to bring up, isn't it relevant to inform your readers about that little data point? That the liberal candidate got 77% of her money from outside the state of Wisconsin? I think it is. Abby Phillip didn't think it was relevant. That's fine. Governor Walker lets that one go.
Is it a risk for Republicans to put all their eggs in that basket? Not only did he spend the money, he came to the state.
Right.
He came to the state. He talked about cutting Medicaid, Social Security through DOGE. Bringing those issues up.
Actually, he never talked. He explicitly said in Green Bay that he would not cut Social Security.
Well,
that's exactly what he said.
Talked at his rallies.
No. Now, what's about to happen here is a real tell about Abby Phillip and her lack of research and her lack of ability to actually, draw on her knowledge of the situation on the ground in Wisconsin. You just heard her say that Elon Musk talked about making cuts to Social Security and Medicare through DOGE, right? And Governor Walker immediately said, no, he actually didn't say that. He actually explicitly said the opposite. Now, Governor Walker is about to say something here. He's about to say other people made those claims. Now, when Governor Walker says other people made those claims, he's talking about the protesters. He's talking about the liberals. He's talking about the Democrats. He's talking about the media. Abby Phillip is going to act like a smart girl here. Abby Phillip is going to take what Scott Walker said, misinterpret it, and say, oh, well, yes, that's right. Other people on behalf of DOGE made those claims, because she doesn't understand. She doesn't get it. She's going to act like she does. So it's a double gotcha that I don't think Governor Walker really meant to happen. It wasn't a setup, but boy, oh boy, she made it a lot worse for herself, right? Watch.
Talked at his rallies.
No. Other people said about that, but I was there. I watched it. Okay. He did not say he was going to cut Medicaid.
Other people at his rallies who work for DOGE, who work for Elon Musk's organization, talked about those issues.
No, I was at the rally. Not a one of them said that. That's what protesters said, but nobody there.
You see what happened there? Governor Walker says, no, he didn't say that. Other people. And she goes, oh, yes, okay, thank you. Other people who work for DOGE. So she's acting like she knows what she's doing, when, of course, obviously she doesn't. And then she takes his talking point and pretends that it's, part of her wealth of knowledge of what happened on the ground there. And she, I misspoke. He didn't say it, but other people who work for DOGE said it. I mean, it's just a double piece of propaganda that Abby Phillip threw out there, and Governor Walker absolutely smashed it in real time while on the air, live on the set. And by the way, my favorite part of this, look at Jake Tapper's face. Blow it up. Let's see Jake. Let's see Jake as this is, and Data Bash as well, as this entire thing is transpiring. Because, can I do the thought bubble of Jake Tapper right here? Can I just let you know what Jake is thinking with that look on his face? Who does this woman think she is? It's my job to lie and misrepresent things and try to push him past Scott Walker, not her. She's stay in your lane, Abby. I'm Jake Tapper. It's my job to pretend like I know more than everyone else in the room and lie and carry the water for the Democrats. That's why Jake is very upset right here. Now, where would Abby Phillip get this idea? Where would Abby Phillip suddenly think, clearly Elon Musk and Doge are trying to destroy Social Security and Medicaid by making all of these cuts? Where would she get that idea, I wonder?
Now, their goal is clear. Destroy Social Security from within. Make it so unworkable, so inefficient, that Donald Trump has the pretext to slash benefits, to kill it, and then privatize the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just demonstrated to you that Abby Phillip's reflex, Abby Phillip's baseline for her presentation on CNN on election night and a misrepresentation of facts, an outright lie that got caught in real time from Scott Walker. It was in her DNA. It was in her bone marrow to make that claim because she is literally repeating talking points from the Democrats. That's who she is. That's what she does every time. Gee, Abby, where did you get the idea that Elon Musk said he was going to cut Social Security through Doge? I don't know. It just sort of came to me, I guess. Literally the talking points of the Democrats. Also on CNN, look at that guy. Look at that face. That's a face right there. Oh, how many great faces does he make that we want to just freeze and promote? That's a good one, Scott. He does it on purpose, doesn't he? Scott Jennings. Take it out. We got a double Scott. Wouldn't that be a great CNN primetime show? Scott and Scott, Walker and Jennings. Let's go.
What the administration is doing, only 33% said because they like what the administration is doing. So if we want to just keep
question, who's more popular right now, Donald Trump or congressional Democrats?
Doesn't matter. Donald Trump happens to be the president, doesn't he?
It doesn't. He's sitting at 50-50. You're sitting
down.
at 20-80.
He's at 48-50, actually, and increasingly people. Oh, you want to call the AP and tell them
You
they're
want to call
closed
CBS News?
Sure.
All right. Okay. We're okay. We're not going to go to that over
but more importantly,
polls. We're not going to.
His numbers are going. His approval ratings are going down.
Where are yours
All right,
headed?
we got to leave it there.
Doesn't
Coming
matter.
up next.
In charge.
That's painful, but that's great. I love that. Again, happy warriors. That's who we are, man. I know there's a lot of people who do what we do, whether it's a streaming show like this or appearing on a panel show like that, and they pound the table and they yell and they roar and they right. You know what? No, we're happy. We're winning. We're in a great mood. We are the happy warriors. That's the face. Scott Walker, that's the face. That's what you got to get. But did you notice again, Abby Phillip? Abby Phillip, the host of the show, the moderator of the panel discussion, really just trying to keep the trains running on time. Nope. Constantly interrupting Scott Jennings, constantly putting a stop to the conversation when the conservative is actually making a killer point. It doesn't stop them from winning the argument, but boy, she does her best, doesn't she? You want another example? We've got another example.
You mentioned free speech, which we already know that people are being deported on the basis of not being able to have certain types of speech that this administration doesn't like. I mean, those are things that are happening right now in this country. You're talking about Europe, but that's happening here.
Yeah, well, I would remind you that over the course of the last several years, the left in this country has undertaken a massive effort to suppress the speech of conservatives. And to this day, the message from the left is,
I think
if you don't say what we like, we will engage in violent acts against you.
I'll let you and Dan in a second, but let's just, you mentioned.
So once again, she interrupts him, but also once again, the false premise of conservatives somehow trying to censor free speech, conservatives trying to control what's being said out there and trying to silence the left. I'm sorry, did you not live through the pandemic? Did you not see what social media companies did at the behest, at the demand of the Biden administration? Did you not see what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop story? Did you not see what continues to go on? By the way, if we're talking about silencing political voices in America, could we look at the makeup of the panel on your own show? and across your entire primetime lineup on CNN. Where are the conservative voices? Is this fair and balanced? Is this equal time? Do you have as many conservative voices on the air as you do left voices? Of course not. Of course not. But no, absolutely. Let's set up the premise that it's conservatives who are afraid of free speech. The conservatives are trying to silence the voices coming from the left. Absolutely. And meanwhile, if you drive a Tesla around America, you've got to keep your head on a swivel and make sure that somebody's not coming up and trying to destroy it because they're so tolerant. Great job, Scott Walker. Great job, Scott Jennings. Abby Phillip, back to the drawing board, my friend. Hey, thank you for watching our show. We got a lot more ahead, but I just want to take a quick moment to say that if you like this, it means you like Town Hall. Town Hall is the producer and distributor of this program, and we'd love for you to become a VIP member of Town Hall. Just go to townhallvip.com, and you'll get 50% off if you use my name at checkout. That gives you VIP access and ad-free experience over at Town Hall, Hot Air, PJ Media, Red State, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. It also gets you behind that VIP paywall, so you're going to see a whole bunch of content, including live streams, including podcasts, and including columns and articles that are just for our VIP members. And finally, it keeps us free from the onerous censorship of big tech. There have been a lot of times over the last several years that based on our content, we've been put on a blacklist where advertising is not pushed our way, because we say things like, maybe this virus came from the lab in Wuhan instead of bat soup, Tony Fauci. Yeah, that kind of reporting big tech doesn't like. And so they censor us. Well, if you're a VIP member, you keep our journalism going, and we would appreciate it. So go to townhallvip.com. Use my name, that's Larry, Larry, and you get 50% off. Thanks for that. We appreciate it. All right. Yesterday, a bunch of Democrat Congress critters went to the Department of Education, and is that not it? Well, I think it's because you can't call them congressmen, right? And you can't call them congresswomen, and you can't call them Congress like them. So I don't know what their pronouns are. Let's just stick with Congress critters. Okay, so the Congress critters, they're Democrats. They go to the Department of Education. They demand a meeting with Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, and they demand to talk about how they refuse to allow the Department of Education to be dismantled, and that they have grave concerns over the teachers union and the Oh, no, they never mentioned that out loud. What they mean is the children, of course, they have concerns. And then after the meeting, they go downstairs. They had already invited the press. It's a big show. Here, take a look. They brought their own podium. They brought this whole thing, and they're going to do this show. They're serious because they brought one of their Congress critters who wears a spangly cowboy hat. They demand to be taken seriously. So they're going to do this whole dog and pony show for the media to talk about what just happened up in the meeting. What they didn't expect was that Linda McMahon, in true Andrew Breitbart / World Wrestling Entertainment fashion, decided to crash the press conference. While they were telling the media what happened in the meeting, Linda McMahon was standing like 8 feet away from them, watching the whole thing go down. So they couldn't lie. And then something happened. Something that those Democrats weren't expecting.
Along a corporate model without a plan and without an effort to really protect our students. So we want to be clear about that. I want to say one other thing, the mood in the room, it was very collegial. We are extraordinarily grateful to the secretary that she joined us. Thank you. She's here.
All right. So just I look at that. How great is that? Do you think if she weren't standing there, that Congress critter would have said, we were very grateful that the secretary had us. It was very cordial. Do you think she would have said that? I think not. We'll never know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it would have been a different tone at this little show for the media. But look at her standing there. Hey, just hanging out. But now this is where the fateful error happens, where this Congresswoman made a big mistake. Watch.
Perhaps I should give her the podium. We're extraordinarily grateful that the secretary gave us the space to have these conversations. But with all due respect, madam, I think my biggest concern is that the states will not be able to protect the programs and services that you would like to devolve with them.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of these folks who came today so that we could have an open discussion about what I believe is one of the most important things that we can have a discussion on or action on in our country, and that is the education of our young people. As Representative Tanaka said as we were ending the meeting, which I thought was incredibly appropriate, and that is that this is not a partisan issue. This is about the children of America, and it's the next generation, the generation after that. And if we want to have our leaders, if we want to have that next group of engineers and doctors and lawyers and plumbers and electricians and HVAC operators, then we need to focus on how they can best have their education. And I believe, and I know the president does believe this as well, the best education is that is closest to the child, where teachers and parents, local superintendents working together and local school boards to develop the curriculum for those students is the best way that it can happen. Funding from the United States government will continue through the programs that have already been established. And I will look forward to continuing to work with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. And I welcome the fact that these folks came today and expressed their concerns and shared in an open collegial format their concerns and how we can lead now to work more together. That's the way it ought to operate. And I'm very happy to have had them here. So I'm
Right. So that's amazing. So she seizes the microphone at the podium. She delivers her message on behalf of President Trump to the media. Look at the congresswoman next to her. It's like, this is not what we planned. This is not going the way we planned it to go. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And it's exactly, it's funny. I remember when Trump won in 2016, and then, all the hand wringing from the establishment Republicans and the never Trumpers. It's like, what happens if the Republican Party takes a cue from Trump? And this is who other politicians, they like model their careers after Trump. What happens if we just become a party of little miniature Donald Trumps who are, tweeting mean things and who are abrasive and criticize the media? And it's like, great. This is what happened. Do you think this happens before Donald Trump is president of the United States? Do you think a cabinet secretary pulls off something like this? And she did it politely, collegially, respectfully, but effectively. And I do like, we'll let this Democrat have the last word because she comes back to the podium here, and it's so sad, actually.
I'm gonna let them answer the questions. I just wanted to come out and have.
While you're here, can you just answer the question? When are you going to shut down this building?
Well, we've had our discussions already, so thank you all very, very much for coming.
Thank you all.
As you see, she's not answering the question when she's going to shut down the Department of Education.
She doesn't know.
That's what they're stuck with. By the way, did you hear somebody watching saying, because she doesn't know? Well, of course we don't know. We're still playing. We can't shut down the Department of Education until there's legislation that codifies it into law. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead with but that's all they're stuck with. All they're stuck with. See, she won't tell you when she's going to shut down the Department of Education. Meanwhile, the American people are like, as long as they're going to do it, let's go. Okay. I can wait. We've waited 45 years and test scores are still bad. That's amazing. That's a beautiful moment. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, you heard me mention Andrew Breitbart as kind of an inspiration here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Anthony Weiner, real name, he's was a congressman in New York City, and he was a rising star. In fact, he even married Huma Abedin, who was the right-hand person of Hillary Clinton at the State Department. Bill Clinton officiated the wedding, which should tell you everything. Well, Anthony Weiner was caught sending indiscreet pictures of his Anthony to underage girls on the internet. And he denied it. I worked for Andrew Breitbart the night this story broke. I was part of rolling out the story, actually. This was in 2011, if I remember right. And yeah, there you go, June of 2011. It was over Memorial Day weekend. Anthony Weiner denied it. Anthony Weiner said Andrew Breitbart hacked into his Twitter account, which, by the way, is a federal offense. FBI investigation started. We were freaking out, right? We knew the story. We knew that we had the goods on him. But it wasn't until a week later when Anthony Weiner was caught, because there was another woman who came forward showing pictures that were obviously Anthony Weiner off of his social media account. And so Anthony Weiner called a press conference in New York. Andrew Breitbart happened to be in New York, and he decided to go to the press conference. He literally, we had a group text going, and he said, I'm going to go up the street to the Sheraton where the press conference is. And we were like, all right, but are you sure that's a good idea? And I kid you not, the last thing he texted us before he ran out of battery was, don't worry, I'll keep a low profile. There's Andrew Breitbart keeping a low profile. My man. Breitbart seizes stage before Weiner press event. He took the podium. All the people in the media recognized him in the room. They started asking him questions. They couldn't hear him. So somebody, a CBS reporter, said, hey, Andrew, why don't you just go up on the podium so we can hear you on the microphone? He goes, okay. And now across all the cable stations who had sort of a live shot waiting for Anthony Weiner to come out and confess what he had done, instead, they're all showing Andrew Breitbart vindicated, saying, I want an apology. And that's exactly what ended up happening with Linda McMahon here, because the Democrats, they wanted to do this big horse and pony show. They wanted to make her look bad. They wanted to do this whole press conference thing. And guess what the media ran with? Guess what they actually played, if they played anything at all? Guess what video went viral? Not these Democrats complaining about the Secretary of Education. No, what went viral was what the Secretary of Education said when she took the podium and delivered her message. It was brilliant. It was beautiful. It was us owning the media again, because the rules have changed. And it all started with that guy. He was my friend. He was my mentor. He died at the age of 43. I would have loved to know what he would think about everything that's happened since then. But the media landscape that we're in right now was created and formed by Andrew Breitbart. And I'm connecting the dots right back to Linda McMahon yesterday taking that podium, because it was absolutely Breitbart. In fact, let's finish with Andrew Breitbart having the last word here.
That have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs. Fuck you. War.
6 years later, Donald Trump. 4 years later, Donald Trump became president of the United States. My, how things have changed. Thank God for Andrew Breitbart.
Man, I get so emotional every time we bring that up.
You get emotional. You know how emotional I could barely get the words out, man. That's why Andrew's always over my shoulder. Read his book, you guys. Righteous Indignation. I make a cameo appearance. I was a bit player back then. I was the 7th employee of the company. But get his book. And while you're at it, get my book, Shameless Liars, which is dedicated to Andrew. Because everything we're living through right now, this world and the way that we're fighting back and winning against the media, is because of what he started and what Donald Trump perfected. And I catalog it in my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. Thanks for getting it. Hardcover, paperback, audiobook. Audiobook's been selling well lately. Thank you. Check that out at Amazon and at Audible. Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is a congresswoman from Texas, and boy, oh boy, does she like the spotlight. She goes everywhere. They used to say this about stars in Hollywood that will just always, she'd go to the opening of an envelope. That's Jasmine Crockett. But she also has a day job. She actually has to do the work of a congresswoman now and then. And she was there at a committee hearing yesterday. Not sure what it was about. Honestly, doesn't matter. What matters is what she revealed about her past.
Say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm Black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy.
Wow. Well, I mean, this explains so much. I do not suggest you do this on your next job interview for a job that you have absolutely no experience in. That's an amazing admission. She's proud of this. She's actually bragging about it. Let me tell you something. I went in and applied for a job that I had zero experience for, and I said, you should hire me. You know why you should hire me? Check it out. Check that out right there, huh? Right? Doesn't get much darker than that. Boom. And I landed the job. Wow. And that's why we have to maintain DEI standards across the board in the federal government and in every other walk of life. There's a word for that kind of thing. Do this for me because my race deserves preferential treatment. There is a word for it. I'm not sure what it is. It'll come to me. In the meantime, let's get to some more shenanigans. This one involving Eric Swalwell.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the speaker for admitting openly on the record that it is unconstitutional. But the concerns that I have are around the fact that we are sitting here pretending as if we all are looking out for the Constitution, yet we are coming from completely different angles. So let me go to Professor Shaw. To be clear, which branch of government is responsible for interpreting what is and what is not legal?
All right. Now, excuse me, Eric Swalwell distracted me here. This is super important. So just so you know, Jasmine Crockett, lawyer, and you just heard about how effective she was getting her first job as a lawyer and why she was hired. Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman and lawyer, is now going to delve deep into the importance of separations of power between the branches of government, specifically the judicial branch and the executive branch. And I want to point out here again and remind you that as far as the Constitution is concerned, the full extent of that separation of power begins and ends with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is delineated by the Constitution as a separate entity from the executive branch and from the legislative branch. That's your three branches of government. But all of the federal courts, which is really the question here, the federal courts are actually created by the legislative branch. Check out your Constitution. That's 100% the truth. But that's not going to stop Jasmine Crockett from flexing her lawyer muscles here about the importance of the separation of these branches. And then Darrell Issa comes in for the kill shot.
Well, the Supreme Court, the Article 3 judicial branch has the final word.
So the judiciary is who it is. So it's not the legislators.
You know, I'd say every branch has an obligation to interpret the Constitution. The final word comes from the courts.
From the courts. It's not the former speakers. It's not everyday people. It's not the president. I just wanted to make sure that we understood who it was that was responsible. And what is so frustrating for so many of the American people, the ones that are watching right now and otherwise, and the reason that they're outraged and scared is because what we see right now is the diminishing of all these institutions. Right now, we have a legislative branch that has decided that it intentionally would disregard their duties. They are not checking the president whatsoever. The only check that the American people have had thus far has been from the judiciary. And the judiciary isn't pulling this out of the sky. In fact, they are coming from basic reading of like the plain language of the Constitution for all of those that are constitutionalists when we start talking about things such as what birthright citizenship is. But one of the things that I want to make sure that I get to, because there are deeper implications if we go down this rabbit hole. Imagine the type of world where the president does whatever he wants to and no one can rein him in. It's a world that right now many people are afraid of. Let me put it this way. If Joe Biden would have done an executive order for abortion, despite what the Supreme Court said, that would have been a problem. Imagine if the state of Colorado kept Trump off the ballot and other states follow suit. That would have been a problem. Or imagine if Jack Smith ignored Eileen Cannon and with the help of an activist judge decided that he was going to prosecute the sitting president anyway. The problem that we have right now is that if we continue down this road, then we will not have a rule of law, because we have people that are currently serving and they're saying things like, ignore the judge's order. What it means to have law and order in this country is that you follow the order and you go through the appeals process, even if you dislike what the judge did. Thank you, and I yield.
Now, I just want to say that was passionate, that was articulate, it was scripted, but that was really effective, right? You cannot defy the judicial branch of government. You can't, well, first of all, you sort of can until it gets to the Supreme Court. That's the final say. Do you notice how they kept saying the judiciary has the final say in interpreting the Constitution? That's not accurate. It's actually the Supreme Court. That's the final say. Goes all the way back to Marbury versus Madison. But what do I know? I'm not a black lawyer. so I can't get a job as a public defender without any experience. Okay, but that was passionate. That was exciting. That was scripted. And of course, if I were to rebut her, I would say, yeah, okay, that's fine. But didn't Joe Biden literally brag about defying the Supreme Court with the whole paying off student loans thing? I mean, he literally said the Supreme Court said I can't do it, but I did it anyway. And y'all were great with that. You celebrated it, right? Am I wrong? What am I missing here? You know, stuff like that. That's what I would do. But Darrell Issa of California, who was chairing the subcommittee, he did it one better, actually.
I'll yield back to Mr. Issa. Mr. Issa, you had a question for me, which I'll yield to you now if you want.
Now that there's no time left. Thanks, Eric.
Entertainment.
You're good. You're good at that, but I'll take my own time. I'll recognize myself. And I'm going to note that when Miss Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as we know her, filed articles of impeachment on Justice Thomas and Alito, Ms. Crockett was one of the co-sponsors along with Mr. Cohen, both members of this committee. It does seem interesting that when the shoe is on the other foot, everyone is self-righteous. And I think this is a good example. For the last 3 hours, I have had to listen to one side talking about impeachment as though it was the nature of this hearing. It is not. I keep looking at my friend, the late Henry Hyde, and remember that although he led the impeachment when it was necessary, he did so only during that time and then never mentioned it again in hearings. In fact, he was religiously able to focus on the hearing of the day. The hearing of today is really about the question of the future of the court's ability to do its job as intended. And I'm
that was a beautiful thing, unlike Representative Swalwell. That was a beautiful moment. And Darrell Issa, absolutely, with the laser focus. It is fascinating to me that you're, celebrating the independence and the importance of the judicial branch, and specifically the Supreme Court, when you literally co-sponsored impeachment papers for Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito. That's beautiful. Listen, we love Jasmine Crockett. She's great for us. We're having a slow news day. We're like, I don't know what we're going to do on the show today. What do you think, Kevin? I don't know. Let's check out Jasmine Crockett. Let's see what she's done. Right. So we love that. We do. But at the same time, we love our country. And we love for actually there to be effective and intelligent people in Congress actually working for the people of their district and advancing the cause of liberty and freedom. So it is with a heavy heart, but at the same time, an excited heart to point out a big announcement that was made today. C.J. Pearson, a Texan, a Republican, a conservative, and a social media star, has announced that he's going to be running against Jasmine Crockett in her district down in Dallas. And I think he's got a chance. Now, if you don't know who C.J. Pearson is, let me remind you. Remember this New York Magazine cover? This was the party that was done in New York celebrating the election night. And C.J. Pearson and his organization actually sponsored this party. He threw this party. He's made a decision to retain legal counsel and will soon issue New York Magazine formal notice. For too long, the media has been allowed to slander conservatives, painting us as racist without consequence. In the same spirit of real Donald Trump, it's time we fight back. That's right. Well, why would he be suing New York Magazine? What's wrong with that picture? Well, let me remind you what's wrong with that picture. You see, there are other pictures from that very same party. Do you notice something different? There's CJ and his friends all celebrating. Do you notice the picture that New York Magazine decided to run to characterize that same party? Do you notice who's missing on the cover there? In fact, it's even worse. Take a look at CJ going on television, talk about it. There's the full picture, the wide angle that includes plenty of black conservatives, but they literally cropped them out to just show the white people at the party.
A black man who loves this country, supports Donald Trump, and I will never apologize for it, and neither should anyone anywhere.
Look, New York Magazine, what has the fight been like, or is there any pushback? They say they got this right, but you want to take it legal.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely disgusting. It was deliberate on their part. They wanted to depict this as some racially homogenous gathering, some KKK kumbaya. So they literally cropped out the black people in this photo to paint that narrative. They didn't even reach out to me for comment, Harris, because they knew that acknowledging the fact that a black man organized this event would undermine their attempts to paint this as some racist gathering. They have been completely, just unapologetic when it comes to this, but we're taking legal action. We've sent them a formal notice of our intent to sue.
Look at that. Look at how they cropped it. Look at, they literally cut right along the edge of this dude's face to keep him out of the picture. That is so deliberate. And so that's CJ Pearson. That is CJ Pearson, who is in the mood to fight. And now he's going to be fighting for Congress. He's going to be running against Jasmine Crockett for the 2026 race. And that's going to be one to watch. And again, I'm torn because I like CJ. I like the idea of Republicans winning a seat. I love black conservatives who can come up there because they take the worst abuse from the media and from Democrats. So they're courageous, they're wonderful, they're fantastic. But I don't know what we're going to do without Jasmine Crockett. The good news is, if she's in a really tough race and she's got to fight for her life, she's going to give us gold right up to election night. So game on. I had to take a quick moment to thank you guys for watching the stream and reminding you, we've got great Hakeem Jeffries stuff coming up, like wackadoodle stuff, along with our pal Elan Mistel, the white Afro guy. And in a minute, Martha McCallum and Chris Coons with a fantastic interview. Like, you will be cheering the screen. Real fast, like our video. You've been watching for 40 minutes now. I know you like this, so give us a like, give us a subscribe. Please be a part of what we're doing right now. And a special shout out right now for our fastest growing audience on Rumble, of all places. It's the OG. At the beginning, we were only on Rumble when we started streaming this show, and then we started adding multiple platforms, and we're really happy with everywhere we are. But our buddies at Rumble are great. We love the activity and action. We love the chats coming from Rumble. You guys are hilarious. It's a great community. And we know that the lineup is sort of shifting right now at Rumble. A lot of you have just found us over the last couple of weeks, and we love you. Thank you very much. Great shout out, and give us lots of likes and subscribes at Rumble and tell a friend. Thank you guys. So Chris Coons is a Democrat senator from Delaware. He's best buds with Joe Biden. In fact, he was the chairman of the Biden for President campaign. So you know he's a really, really good politician. He made the mistake of showing up on Fox News yesterday and running into a real journalist, Martha McCallum. Take a look at this masterpiece.
Do you have that clip for us, Larry?
Oh, and that was such a great buildup, too, after getting excited. And all you Rumble people are now really judging me, aren't you? All right, let's share the clip. Let's do it right this time.
Were you as shocked as I was when you heard some of those numbers, some of that information about how much fraud is happening in Social Security, Senator?
So, Martha, not only do I not believe some of what was just shared there, but the Trump administration's acting administrator of Social Security has said that less than 0.1% of the payments put out by the Social Security Administration are fraudulent or in error. Let's be clear about some of the things that were just played. There are people whose names are on the rolls as having been born 150 or 200 years ago. They're not receiving Social Security payments. So the statement
I don't think that's
that
true in every
there's
case
all
at
these
all.
people, Martha,
Yeah.
I'm just
So let me
repeating back to you
let
what
me
the
put it
Trump
this way.
administration acting Social Security administrator has said about the percentage of fraud in Social Security.
So let me ask you
Part
this.
of why I'm alarmed about Elon Musk and Doge, and they're getting into the systems and they're getting the access to the individual information of millions of Americans, is that Elon Musk has made it clear he thinks Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is itself fraudulent, fake, criminal, or illegal. I don't think Social Security is a Ponzi scheme.
Well, let me ask
I
you
think
something.
70 million Americans depend on it for their
Right,
principal
but
source
gee,
of
that's
income.
too bad, because
so
in 10
letting
years,
Doge
let me
into
ask you a
Social
question,
Security
Senator. Let me ask
to
you a question.
tear it up,
You've made a lot
like
of points.
they
Let
have
me ask you
destroyed
something.
other agencies,
Sir.
I think is immoral.
So you sound like you're pretty okay with all the agencies and how they function. So you say all those millions of people depend on Social Security, so you don't care about the ones that are going to never get it because it's going to be insolvent in 10 years. What have Democrats done? What did Joe Biden's administration do to find the waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security to try to shore up this important agency? What did they do? Can you tell?
That's a great question, and you're going to hear the answer in just a second, but I just want to pause because, you know, part of what we do here is provide you ammunition for your liberal brother-in-law that you have to see at Sunday dinner or maybe at a holiday, or maybe the liberal in your office in the cubicle over who's got the, you know, Democrat Socialists of America bumper sticker pinned on the outside of it, or maybe the liberals on your Facebook page that you went to high school with that continue to try to troll you. Let me just say, if they're throwing the Social Security thing at you and saying that Trump and Doge and Republicans are trying to ruin Social Security, I just want to give you a quick talking point real fast. Do you see this? Social Security projected insolvency 2035. Now, you may not like the term Ponzi scheme, but what a Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent system where people pay in with a promise that they're going to get money out at the end of the day, when the people who are running the investment scheme know for a fact that the people are paying in right now will never see that money back. Okay. So if you are set to retire anytime before 2035 and you are paying Social Security right now under the promise that you will have Social Security benefits after 2035, you're being lied to. And every single member of the federal government, every elected official, they know it. They know this. Projected insolvency 2035. You may not like the term Ponzi scheme. They may think that that's a great talking point, but that is literally exactly what this is. You are paying into it with the promise that you will get your money back, and you will not. And they know it, but they still lie to you. All right. And let me just add one more thing for you to have as a talking point. Really good one. You should take it with you. The people right now who have their hearts set on ruining Social Security, the people in our government right now, the elected officials who are proactively ruining Social Security, are the ones who are doing nothing. Do you get it? If you right now are doing nothing to fix Social Security, if you are not floating any idea, get rid of the fraud, get rid of the waste, fix the systems, audit to make sure that only citizens are getting Social Security, save some costs by changing the call center and making it more automated, the stuff that Doge is doing. If you are doing nothing right now, like Chris Coons, like every Democrat, like most of the Republicans, if you are doing nothing to fix Social Security, knowing this, you are ruining Social Security. You are the one. All right. I just wanted to let you know that. Let's go with Martha and Chris now.
Try to shore up this important agency. What did they do? Can you tell me?
Sure. So first, Martha, you are presuming widespread waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security. You haven't offered any credible evidence to support that. I don't believe what Doge says about virtually any federal agency, but I will believe what the GAO says, or the Inspector General, or the Administrator of Social Security, because I've had senior folks from Doge lie to my face about other federal agencies where they claim they have found widespread waste, fraud, and abuse, where previous audits did not find that waste, fraud, and abuse. And this administration, Martha, fired the Inspector General of USAID when he filed complaints about the waste of huge amounts of food aid left rotting on docks.
Let me ask you
Rather
something.
than dealing with that fraud, they fired him.
I'm amazed by, so you're saying that I'm assuming that there's waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's equally surprising that you are assuming that the government is functioning in an efficient way when we all know.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, then what has
Martha, there are inspector generals in every single agency that are there to find waste, fraud, and abuse.
They've done a fantastic bang-up job. I mean, when you look at the number...
And to start the administration by firing all of them does not suggest a deep interest in listening to these career nonpartisan
I don't know why you don't want to
inspectors
hear it.
general about waste.
No, you can't just like put your fingers in your ear and go, blah, blah, blah. Like it's not happening. We all know
that's not at all what I'm doing, Martha.
Government is not
Let me repeat the point.
Run. And these
if
people.
Elon Musk says that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, And this president has fired the relevant inspectors general, who are the people most capable, not a bunch of 20-year-old software engineers with no previous government experience.
People, did you watch
because
this
they
interview,
are
Senator?
trained,
Did you watch the interview?
independent,
Did you watch
competent
this?
accountants.
Did you watch the interview?
Which interview? I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
one I just
You're
played
yelling
you from.
so much.
No, I can't, because I can't get a word in edgewise. I'm trying to ask you a question. That's my job. So
you go right ahead.
There was an excellent panel on Special Report. These are not 25-year-old, whatever people have been calling them. They're very seasoned executives who have made a lot of money and run good businesses efficiently, where they only use the number of people to get the job done that they needed. They gave up their livelihood and they left their families and they came to Washington to try to give their expertise to some of these agencies that are so sclerotic and wasteful that they are not able to function. So, okay, it would be great if both sides of this, because when I remember there being an active interest by Democrats in saying, what, we know that that there's a lot of waste in our government. Now you're telling me there isn't.
That's not at all what I said. I said in Social Security, the current Trump administration acting Social Security administrator has said publicly less than 0.1% of the Social Security.
Yeah, let me just pause there. I love how he's parsing. This is the acting social, who, by the way, is a Biden appointee probably or an Obama appointee, who's the acting. If somebody's acting administrator, right, 0.1% of the payments of this, it's like, okay, dude, fine. So where is the fraud then? First of all, I dispute that, but where is the fraud? You're acting like there isn't any. Now you claim you're not saying that there isn't any fraud. What the hell have you done to fix it? And all he can say is, well, we have inspector generals. Yeah, what have they done? That's why they got fired. But look at Martha McCallum. Let me tell you something. Martha McCallum's kind of a cool cucumber. She doesn't get heated up. This is not like her. Do you see how he's talking over her? When you're in a television interview and you decide to interrupt the host and talk over them and continue to repeat your talking point the way this guy is doing, it's because you're a liar. It's because you're hiding. It's because you're desperate. And it's because you don't want the audience to be able to hear what the host is saying. That's the only reason to do it. And he's done it like 4 times now. 4 times. And this last one where you just heard them overlapping each other for like 30 seconds. Again, let me reveal a little bit about how we do things in the media. I'm a radio host. I've been a television host. I interview people all the time. And I know people who work at Fox. I know a lot of the hosts over there. As frustrating as it might seem to watch something like this, and as frustrating as it is to see the Democrat who goes on these shows sort of run roughshod, it's because the Democrat knows what the rules are. And the rules, generally speaking, with very few exceptions, is that the host should sort of step back. Even if the Democrat is being unreasonable, even if they're bullying you, even if they're trying to talk over you, the audience does not want to hear overlapping voices. And so as the host, as the person who is in charge of the television show or the radio program, as the person whose main important priority is the audience experience, if your guest starts talking over you, it's incumbent on you to stop, okay? Because as bad as it is for the guest to be a bully and to be obnoxious and to talk over you, what's worse is hearing overlapping voices. So most hosts on Fox News, on Newsmax, on television, or on talk radio even, they won't do that. They won't do what Martha McCallum doing that just now was an extraordinary moment that shows how angry and frustrated she was because she wanted to display to the audience exactly what she was dealing with. So you could feel that frustration too. It was a brilliant move by her. The only advantage that we have in talk radio is that there's not a camera on us all the time. And so if this starts to happen, we can just hit the mute button. And we can tell the audience, all right, just so you know, I've hit the mute button on Senator Coons because he continues to talk over me and nobody wants to hear that. So Senator Coons, I know you can hear me even though you're muted. I'm going to go ahead and finish my statement and then we'll take the mute button off. I've done that before. And what's funny is when I take the mute button off, the Democrat is still going. Didn't even notice. Didn't even hear me. All right. So what you just saw from her was amazing. And look at that face. She's so frustrated with him right now. It is palpable. This guy is such a jerk, so impolite, so rude. And by the way, Democrats will high five him. Yeah, you showed Fox News what for. But honestly, to the most Americans watching this, he comes across as a bully and someone who has got something very specific to hide. He does not want to answer the questions. All right, so let's get back to this. We'll finish it up because it's so brilliant.
Payments are being improvident, are not being sent to people who are entitled to them.
Let's assume that you are 100%
I agree
right.
with you that there is waste and fraud in different federal programs, and sign me up for working in a measured, bipartisan, thoughtful way about reducing. I mean, there are in Medicare,
Well, you
for
should talk
example,
to the people on the
fraudulent
panel
payments.
here, because I think
There
you'd be pretty
are in
impressed with many of them. I would ask you respectfully to take a look at this panel discussion, because I found it very eye-opening. It's not a bunch of like nutty 25-year-olds, as you suggested. They're actually quite thoughtful, intelligent people who, have a great record of. So let me ask you.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I do
Were
love
you
the
as
part.
shocked?
Love the part where she says you can't just stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 and pretend it's not happening. Let me tell you something. They're lying. They're 100% lying. They're deceiving you. They're full of absolute bullshit. And you know it. We know it. The American people know it. Everybody knows it. And let me just lay it out there. You just heard Chris Coons say, listen, I acknowledge that there's waste and fraud in the government, and sign me up, he said. Sign me up to be a part of the solution. Chris Coons has been in the Senate for 15 years. Before that, he was a member of Congress for multiple years before that. He's been an elected official in Washington, D.C., representing Delaware for 20 years. He's done nothing. He's done nothing. Going on Fox News, talking over the host and saying, sign me up, I'll fix it, just not the way Elon Musk and Doge are fixing it, because I've done a focus group and people don't like Elon Musk. He's full of crap. If you are trying to fix waste, fraud, and abuse in Washington, D.C. and in the federal government, there are two groups of people that you don't want to talk to. Any Democrat and most of the Republicans. Other than that, you'll find a lot of cooperation in the government. All right, let's bring it in for a landing. If you analyzed the Tuesday results out of Wisconsin, it was a bit of a mixed bag, right? Yes, the liberal Supreme Court justice won, and that's going to have some repercussions with redistricting and maybe even some measures that Donald Trump tries to do through executive orders that some courts are going to probably stop. That's bad. You know what's good? Voter ID law, not just passed overwhelmingly by the people of Wisconsin, but it wasn't just a law. It was an amendment to the Constitution. So that state Supreme Court, they can't overturn it. Even the legislature, if it goes Democrat, can't overturn it. They'd have to reintroduce it to the people of Wisconsin to re-amend the Constitution. And if you look at the map, you know how we do the blue-red breakdown of counties in the United States, and it's overwhelmingly red, and you just see little blue concentrations like on the coast and in New York, D.C., Chicago, that kind of thing. Yeah, you do the breakdown in Wisconsin on who voted for the constitutional amendment for voter ID, and it's like overwhelmingly red. And there's this little blue square in Madison, Wisconsin, the Democrat enclave, where the capital city is. This is an incredibly popular measure. The exact same state, on the exact same day where they voted a liberal justice onto the Supreme Court, they at the same time voted for voter ID. It is hugely popular with the American people because it's logical and it makes sense. So naturally, Democrats oppose it. Here's Hakeem Jeffries. He is the minority leader in the House of Representatives. Here's what he had to say about asking to see photo identification before you vote in an election.
In that referendum in Wisconsin, then you should have brought the SAVE Act, which is a voter suppression bill that we strongly oppose, to the floor this week. You could have done it. Could have done it today. Could do it tomorrow. We dare you to bring the SAVE Act to the floor. We'll have that discussion. That's voter suppression.
Now, let me tell you what the SAVE Act is. Not only is it photo ID, but it's very specific. It's photo ID to ensure that when registering to vote, you are a citizen of the United States of America. So this goes well beyond just showing up at the ballot box and saying, hi, I'm registered to vote. Here's my name, and here's photo ID to prove I am who I say I am. No. This goes a step before that. This is when you go to register to vote, which is something only a U.S. citizen should do, that you have to show proof of citizenship. You have to show proof of citizenship to register to vote, which, by the way, should already be the law of the land. Somebody smarter than me has to explain to me why that's not already a law, that you have to prove you're a citizen to vote and to register to vote. But forget it. All right, we're fixing it. We've got a law. We're calling it the SAVE Act. From this point forward, if you register to vote, you have to prove you're a citizen. And not only do Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, oppose it, but they call that voter suppression.
In that referendum in Wisconsin, then you should have brought the SAVE Act, which is a voter suppression bill.
Proving that you're an American citizen and eligible to legally vote in America is voter suppression, which, by the way, is quite a tell, because he's right. It is voter suppression. It is illegal voter suppression. There is no better way to make sure that people who are voting illegally are suppressed than making them prove that they're citizens and shouldn't be voting legally. And so there's Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the Democrats, kind of giving away the store there. You're suppressing our voters, non-citizens. You're suppressing our voters, people who shouldn't be voting. So not only is photo ID racist and voter suppression and, against the Constitution in their minds, but even proving that you're a citizen is voter suppression. Thank you for admitting it, Hakeem Jeffries, by the way. Thank you for admitting that you're counting on those votes, that you rely on those votes. We're screwed if non-citizens can't vote. Absolutely destroyed. Why are you suppressing Democrat votes? We need those non-citizens. Elie Mystal, who, he is, talk about a treasure trove of content for us this week. I want him to have a new book every month with this book tour. He showed up on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, and he doubled down.
Rock up to the polls and vote. So we could just get rid of all of them. We could just get rid of all of them. And the people.
All right, now let's pause there because people who aren't thinking this through may think that's right. Why do we register to vote? We don't need registration votes. Just if you're eligible to vote, just show up and vote. And I have no doubt that not only the audience for the Breakfast Club may not be thinking hard about this because it's a morning show and they're driving and they might not register, but I guarantee you the Mensa member hosts of this show have nothing legitimate to add to this conversation. So they're letting Elie Mystal pontificate because he's a lawyer after all. And my, oh my, just look at his hair. It looks like she should be on the Quaker Oats box. So let's just think this through for a second. There is no voter registration at all in our country. Eligible to vote, you show up and vote. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but where I live, we have voter registration. And when it's my turn to vote, I go to my polling place and I walk up and I say, my name's Larry O'Connor, but you can call me Larry. And I don't say that. And then where I live, you don't have to show an ID, but I show it anyway, just to trigger them. And they ask for my address. I tell them the address. They look on the voter registration roll to see if my name is there. They see it. They hand me a ballot. And then what do? I bet they do the same thing in your district that they do in my district. They take a pen and they draw a line through my name. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? Why? Do you know why? Because let's say I show up first thing in the morning when the polls open and I get my ballot. And then 12 hours later, I show up right before the polls close and I get another ballot. Well, if my name is lined out, they're going to say, I'm sorry, you've already voted. All right, now think this through for a minute. If we don't have voter registration, how are they going to make sure I didn't vote twice? Hold on. I'm going to take it one step further. Let's say I go to my district, my precinct, and I vote. And there's no voter registration, right? And then I drive 20 miles to another precinct and I vote. And there's no voter registration. I'm just eligible to vote. So I vote. And then I drive 20 more. Well, you get the picture. Don't you think voter registration is kind of an important thing to ensure that there aren't multiple votes from one person, that there aren't ballot stuffing, that there isn't? Let me just be clear. When someone like Elie Mystal, a liberal, left-wing, socialist, Democrat activist with a law degree, presents any kind of solution with regard to voting, you should immediately reject it because it's just going to be a gateway to cheat. Every single time. Every single time. But we'll let him finish. Now, I just wanted to jump in there because God knows Charlemagne the God ain't going to challenge him. But if you don't have voter registration, there's no way to prove that somebody didn't vote twice or 10.
Republicans keep saying we need voter ID. The voter ID.
You know what? I'll just let him finish. Voter fraud doesn't exist. How many people have we talked about who have been convicted of voter fraud just in the last year or two? Go to Heritage Foundation. They have a whole database of voter fraud convictions. And this is a crime that is barely investigated in this country. But no. Charlemagne the God, I love how you broke this down in the book. I love how you completely lied in this book. Voter fraud doesn't exist. Okay. Restrict illegal voters from voting. And that's why his proposal is an absolute fraud. By the way, does he have an afro pick sticking out of his hair?
I noticed that too.
Do you see it? It's sort of blending into the background, but that is in fact an afro pick sticking out of his hair. I'll just let him move so you can see it. Yeah, it's literally just okay. Yeah. So listen, if Elie Mystal came to me with an offer like that, again, I would reject it out of hand, even if I didn't have a good reason for it, because I don't trust him. And I don't trust Democrats, and I don't trust the left on things like this. His opposition to photo ID for voting is a remarkable admission that he wants to make sure that people can vote without actually proving they are who they say they are, which is, again, the wildest thing you will ever hear around the world. I know we got viewers in Canada and England and in the Netherlands. Can you believe that in some states in this country you don't have to show an ID for something as valuable as the vote? And you heard him say, we got to just make sure it's free because, that's unfair. The argument against photo ID verification for voting in this country has always been the same, which is it discriminates against people of color, which is honestly the most offensive thing that you'll ever hear, because the suggestion is that for some reason, people of color have less ability to figure out how to get a photo ID than people of not color, or whatever the appropriate nomenclature is. Let me just leave you with this on that, because it's something that I'm really passionate about. If people of color in this country don't have photo ID, honestly, voting is the least of my concerns. It means that they can't get a bank account. It means they can't cash a check. It means they can't get a job. You need a photo ID to get a job in this country, right? You got to fill out 99. You can't work and get a paycheck unless you have a photo ID. That's just the truth. You can't travel. You can't get on an airplane. I don't think you can't get on a train. Think of all of the things that you must show a photo ID for in this country to be a normative, functioning member of our society. Now, I see the statistics that show that there's a certain number of people who do not have a photo ID and for some reason have not been able to obtain a photo ID. Number one, I don't believe those stats, but let's just go down their path with them. Let's stipulate, okay, there's a certain percentage of people in this country who cannot or have not or will not obtain a photo ID, which means they cannot be a normal, functioning member of our society. They can't get a bank account. They can't cash a check. They can't get a job. They can't travel. They can't get an education. I have a question for my friend Ellie here. I have a question for Kamala Harris. I have a question for Barack Obama. I have a question for everyone in the media on the left who uses this talking point over and over again for one reason and one reason only. They use these people who don't have a photo ID, which again, I don't believe exist. But if they do, they use these people as some sort of prop to prevent voter ID from ever happening in this country. Well, we can't do that because we got people who can't get a voter ID, who can't get a photo ID, and that's why we can't have voter ID. And that's all they use them for. They literally use these imaginary people who I don't think exist to keep voter ID from becoming the law. Elie Mystal wants to make a deal. Here's my deal for you. Unlike you, sir, if there is someone in this country who's trying to function, who is trying to exist as my fellow American, who cannot get a bank account, who cannot get a job, who cannot get an education, who cannot travel, who cannot cash a check, if there's someone like that, my fellow American, my brother, my sister, under the red, white, and blue Star-Spangled Banner, I want to help that person. Why don't you? Why do you just want to use them as a reason to keep voter ID from becoming the law? Why do you want to use that poor, sad, misfortunate individual, use them as a weapon against Republicans to call us racist, and use them to keep our voting integrity in this country? Why do you only want to use them and manipulate them for your own purposes to keep this fraudulent voting scheme alive? I actually care about that person who doesn't have a photo ID. I want them to be a fully functioning member of our society, unlike you, Elie Mystal. Unlike you, Barack Obama, and every other bleeding heart Democrat who only use them as a prop and a weapon and a chance to call Republicans racist. Call me racist. I don't care. I want that guy to get an ID. I want that grandma to get an ID. I want every single person who right now, for whatever reason, is a United States citizen but cannot get a photo ID. I want them to be able to get a bank account, get a job, cash a check, travel, and get an education. Why don't you? Let's instead, you want to work a deal? Want to make a deal? Let's make a deal. Let's work together to get these people photo IDs so that they can live the American dream. Let's get them their photo IDs, and then once they have it, they can use it to vote so that we know our elections are a little bit more secure. That's the deal that I make with you, Elie Mystal, and Democrats will say no. Why? Because they don't care about that person who doesn't have a photo ID, which, again, I don't think really exists. They want to make sure that our elections are wide open for fraud. And that's our show. Whee! That was fun. We got some super chats from Rumble that I want to share with you. Our buddy Arthur Brogdon, who is just like overwhelming us with super chats at Rumble, God bless you, brother, says, I was the Artful Dodger in Oliver in high school. So I began the show by saying that I played Captain Von Trapp in Sound of Music in high school. I was brilliant. That wasn't my star turn, though. That was my sophomore year. Senior year, I was Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. When we get 1 million subscribers on YouTube and 100,000 followers on Rumble, I will sing If I Were a Rich Man in costume and makeup on this very program. That is my promise to you.
Oh, my goodness.
$10 from Arthur Brogdon on Rumble says, I was the Artful Dodger and Oliver in high school. And Larry, quoting now, should I sing it? I think I should sing it. Consider yourself my mate. Consider yourself part of my family. I even did it in the Cockney. I love that. Do you know who the original the original London production, I think, Artful Dodger was? A very young, I think he was 12 years old, Davy Jones. Davy Jones of the Monkees was the original Artful Dodger in the and here's another little trivia so I can bring it back home to our theme of the show today. He died. Oh my God. Davy Jones died on February 29th, 2012. Why do I know that? Why do I know that Davy Jones died on February 29th, leap year, 2012? I'll tell you why I know that. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Now I should say it could have been the evening of the 28th, England time, but in LA, we learned about it on the 29th. Why? Because I was working at the Breitbart offices with Andrew that morning, and he said, and I was editor of Breitbart TV, and he goes, Larry, did you see Davy Jones died? I said, yeah, I just saw it. He said, oh, well, make sure we get a video. So I put together a video montage of Davy Jones because that's a pop culture. Andrew was very into pop culture, obviously. And so I got the video up there, and we had a really nice tribute on Breitbart TV that day for Davy Jones because he had died. Why does that matter? Because that night, at the stroke of midnight, March 1st, right after February 29th, Andrew Breitbart died. Same day, same day, same day. So there you go. Your Artful Dodger Oliver reference brings us back to Andrew Breitbart. Oh, and another $10. I'm sorry, I'm going to end with that. And we got another $10 from Arthur Brogdon again over on Rumble. It's not talking points, it's donkey points. Fixed it for you. Yeah. What did I call? Oh, yeah, exactly. The Democrat talking points are actually donkey points. Very good point. Abby Phillip, all she did is regurgitate those donkey points, which we caught her. That's why else would Abby Phillip say that Doge is trying to kill Social Security? Where'd she hear that from? All right. I think that's it. Is that all? I think we're done. We're good. We're done. Do we have anything else, Kevin? What have I missed?
Nothing. That was a great show.
It was a great show. If you liked any of our segments today, especially my impassioned plea for photo ID, which I thought was quite effective, take a look at the platform you're watching on right now, because our great crack team of editors and video framers are going to present that as a standalone video a little later in the day. Otherwise, like and subscribe to this account, like this video, share the entire program, because our audience for the full show has really been growing on all platforms, including all of you. Once again, big shout out to Rumble. Thank you very much for growing that audience. We will see you next time. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.